Hi, Tyla.
Hi, Sally.
How are you today?
I'm so excited to talk to you. How are you?
I am also excited. Woo!
Yay!
All right, let's get going. So, what's the best thing that's happened to you this week?
Oh, boy. Well, the thing that I think I enjoyed most this week is it's got two parts, but I'll be quick. So the first part was watching Nashville yesterday with you. And for everybody out there in the world, Sally lives in California and I live in New York. So we quote unquote watch Nashville together, which means that we just sync up our timestamps and text each other the whole time. So that was really great. But then I'm trying to catch up on The Good Wife before the series finale this Sunday so that my mom and I can watch it together. So last night I was binge watching The Good Wife and I was live texting her all of my reactions, which I've never done before, but she said she wanted. And I think that she was getting really overwhelmed. But it was really entertaining for me.
I love it. She did say she wanted to be part of it.
I know, she said that. So I'm not sure that she really feels that way now that she saw what that's like. But but it's going to happen because I only have 3 more episodes to go. And then I'll be caught up for the series finale on Sunday.
Oh, it's this Sunday?
Yeah.
I don't watch The Good Wife, so I don't know.
Oh, it's so good. Oh, my God. All right, Sally, what's the best thing that happened to you this week?
Oh, boy. Best thing that happened to me is going to sound weird. I did not get strep throat. Yay!
Yay!
My boyfriend, Justin, was home this week with strep throat, and we kept having to, not be in the same room together and, make sure that I'm sitting on one end of the couch and he's sitting on the other if we are together. And
poor Justin.
He's so paranoid. I mean, we haven't kissed in almost a week now. Because and even though he's on antibiotics, even though he's no longer contagious, he's like, no, I just don't want you to get strep throat. So far, this has been very successful, and I'm really excited. That's the best thing that's happened to me this week is being very healthy and feeling really good.
Have you been taking emergency?
I have not been, but I feel fine. I feel actually, fantastic. There's nothing.
You're braver than me. I would be taking, 10 emergencies a day.
No, I feel good. I mean, I was trying to think if I've even increased my vitamin C intake, but I haven't. I've just been, eating regularly, doing all the regular things, drinking a lot of water like I usually do.
Quarantining your boyfriend.
Yeah, you know. You know how it goes. All right. So that's what's been happening with us this week. So let's now go back to a year ago today. Tyla is sharing again today. So tell us what happened to you a year ago today.
I would like to preface this by saying that we will have guests in the future that are not me.
Right, yes.
It's not going to be all Tyla all the time. But a year ago today, I made the bold decision to join a year-long coaching program with a coach named Tara Marino, and the program is called Creme de la Femme, and the investment was $20,000. So if you listened to the last episode, you know that I had just found out I was losing my job and had no idea what I was going to do with my life. And so then, of course, I turned around and invested $20,000 in my personal growth.
Mm-hmm. It is a bold move. That was a good way of describing it.
Bold move.
So is that the word, if you had to use one word to describe how you were feeling at the time, what would it be?
Oh boy, I don't think it would be bold. I think if I had to pick one word about how I was feeling, oh God, terrified.
Mm-hmm. Good one. All right, so set the scene for us. What we already know, you had lost your job. We know that. So where were you? What was happening? Tell us all the things.
Okay. So I had traveled to California to go to this in-person event with the coach, Tara Marino. And this was an event that, Sally, you had gone to the year before, and you had told me how wonderful it was. And I didn't really understand or comprehend. But then I had gone to another short event with the same coach here in New York, and I fell in love with her immediately. And I was like, oh, I understand what Sally was talking about, this big in-person event in California. So I signed up to go. So I took time from work. And thankfully I had already agreed to come to this event before I found out I was losing my job, because I don't know that I would have come had I not already committed. Mm-hmm. And coming into the weekend, I had no idea what to expect. I felt like it was going to be life-changing, but I didn't know what that meant. And I already knew that this program existed because you had told me. You and I had talked about, like, oh my God, wouldn't it be amazing one day to sign up for this program? And we had both been like, yeah, that would be really amazing in, like 10 or 15 years when we're millionaires and can just
mm-hmm.
just afford to pay $20,000 at the drop of a hat. And I remember coming into the weekend, my mom and I and you were all rooming together, mm-hmm. and you said, I have a really strong feeling that one of us out of the three of us is going to be leaving here as a creme,
mm-hmm.
and it's not going to be me. And I feel like I looked at you and was like, well, it's not going to be me. You're crazy. Because I definitely don't have any money, and I also don't have a job soon. So it's definitely not going to be me. And I was wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you are. I wondered at the time how you felt about my saying that, because it was so strong. I knew it so strongly. I had so much conviction of like, oh, wow. Okay. Cause it was a surprise for me too. The year before I had actually really desired to join. And so I assumed that going into it again, I would be like, oh my God, this is it. This is the year that it's going to happen. And instead, as soon as I started feeling into the weekend, I was like, oh, no, it's not me. I don't think it's my time at all. So I was curious to see how you were feeling at the time when I kind of proclaimed this as like, hey guys, just so you know, prepare yourselves.
Well, when you said that, I mean, honestly, I was like, Sally's lost her damn mind.
Oh boy.
Because I knew, and I felt fine about it, because when you said it, it was so far from the truth of what I was feeling inside that it didn't, it kind of just like bounced off when you said it, it didn't mm-hmm. make me scared. It didn't make me apprehensive. I was just like, Sally's gone mad. And we're just going to smile and nod and keep moving.
Oh boy, I love that. So you show up, I say this huge, I give the prophecy, and then we start, then, the event starts. So how are you feeling throughout the event?
I was feeling open and curious. Like I said, I wasn't sure what I was getting into, but I felt a very strong resonance with Tara, the coach. I'm just going to say Tara from now on and assume that everyone will know who I'm talking about.
We've got smart listeners.
So I had felt a really strong resonance with her already. And as the weekend progressed, it was like the energy was building up more and more, and I was picking up all of this momentum and kind of this opening. And I say all the time now that I learned more in 3 days at that event about myself than I had learned in 3 years of therapy. And I think that that's really true. And I think that I started to realize that that was happening, the rate at which I was learning things about myself and making discoveries. And then I started being like, oh no, because I knew that her sales pitch was coming for this program. And I was like, it's fine. I'm not going to do the program. I don't want to do the program. I can't afford to do the program, so I'm not going to do the program. And then, of course, it gets to the part of the weekend where the pitch is happening, and all of the women who had just completed the program came up on the stage. And I don't remember anything that was said by any of them, but I just know that I had such a strong visceral reaction that my whole body was shaking and my ears were ringing. And I got really lightheaded and I felt like I might pass out. And my body has never reacted to anything like that before. And I was like, oh my God, that's what people mean when they say that they got a full-bodied yes to something. Because I was like, I couldn't even focus on the specific words that were being said by the women on stage, but the energy was so overwhelming. And, then of course I started being like, well, how? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that was the next piece.
So then how? I love I sort of love what happened leading up to it, and then just you kind of trusting in the money piece. So I'd love to hear how it all transpired.
Right. So without telling you or my mom, I'm pretty sure, I don't think I said anything. I think that we had a break right after the sales pitch, and that I went back to our room at the very first thing that I did, because I had excellent credit at the time. The very first thing that I did was apply for, first I researched cards that has 0% interest for a year, and then I applied for a card and just sort of prayed that the limit would be high enough, and knew that that was kind of a ridiculous thing because most of my credit card limits were hovering around $12,000. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to get approved for as much money as I need. And I even called American Express and I was like, I would like a higher starting limit. And they were like, you haven't even been approved yet. we can't raise your limit. They were like, if you want, after you're approved, if you immediately want to call and raise the limit of the card, you're free to call and we'll evaluate, So I just waited, and I can't remember if I went ahead and paid the deposit before I found out I was approved for a credit card, because I had enough to cover the deposit. But however it happened, I paid the deposit, and then I found out I was approved for this American Express card with 0% interest for 1 year, and that my starting balance was $18,500. And after paying the deposit, all I required was $15,500. So I put the remainder of the balance on a credit card and said, I will figure this out later.
Yeah. I really do love this story because I think that there is a misconception that as we said before, millionaires are the kind of people who drop 20K for their personal growth. And yet it's just so, when you know, and when you say yes and you just kind of take that leap, I find it's always just so powerful. And I think that a lot of people get stuck in I can't take that leap because I don't know how. And that's defeats the purpose. I mean, that's the whole point. You take the leap without knowing how. It wouldn't be a leap if you knew how. If it was just, I've got $20,000 sitting in the bank and it's been there waiting for an opportunity just like this. So I'm going to say yes. That's not a leap.
Right.
I guess a different kind of leap because you're not sure what the program will give you, but it's really different. And I just remember that I didn't know, I mean, you're right. You didn't say anything when you left to like go apply, but then after you had applied, you were like making reference to it. And so I was like, oh, this is great. This is totally happening. Because obviously she's going to have enough money to pay this and to put it on the credit card. And it just added to the magic. I think it was a lot of magic that weekend. It was what I was feeling happening. And that just added to it. I was like, of course that's going to work out because she has to be a creme. That's just what's going to happen. Yay. So tell us also about the application process and what that was like for you. Because I know that there is one. And so, yeah, I'd love to hear about how that played into your journey. Because I don't think we've really talked about that before.
Oh, boy. So they give the application to everyone. And they say, it's a good exercise to fill this out, even if you're not even considering applying, because the questions are introspective, and you will grow through the process of answering the questions, whether or not you're planning to apply. But for me, I already knew when I started filling out the application. I applied for the credit card before I even started the application. And honestly, I think I found the application process very easy. I can't really remember any of the questions that I had to answer. The only thing that really sticks out to me in my mind about the application process is that, as I mentioned, you and me and my mom were all sharing a hotel room. And I was sitting on one bed filling out my application, and she was sitting on the other bed filling out her application, and we hadn't yet discussed whether or not she was actually applying or if she was just filling it out kind of as the homework. But I started feeling really private, and I remember I actually crawled off the bed and sat on the floor on the far side of the room, away from where my mom was, between the bed and an easy chair, kind of in this little alcove. And I was in this little cave filling out my application because I felt like needed privacy. It was interesting because I think that if it had been you in the room, I don't think I would have moved, but something about my mom feeling my energy was making me uncomfortable. And I think that's because I had already decided that it was a yes, and she and I hadn't talked about it yet.
That's really interesting. I don't remember where I was when I filled out the application because I did fill it out. I do agree that filling out applications like that is a really interesting exercise. It's always very eye-opening for me. So I will often apply for things even if I don't think that I'm going to do them. And I knew that I was a no. So I think that I did it either I went outside somewhere in the sun to do it, or I did it in the hallway. I can't remember which one it was because now I'm confusing it with the one 2 years ago because I filled it out both times. But I do remember that I left y'all alone and that I didn't see you guys again until after we were all done. So yeah, and we never talked about it, and I was always curious about what had happened and all of that because as we know now, your mom joined.
Yeah.
So tell us about that.
Well, I could feel her. I could feel that it was a yes for her too. And that was so surprising to me because just like I knew that I didn't have the money, I also knew that she didn't have the money. And while I would be crazy and kind of stupid enough to to make that kind of investment without having the money, I didn't think that she would. But I could feel that she was a yes too. And so after I had filled out my application, I asked her, are you really going to apply? And she had only come to this event because you and I were going, so she already kind of felt like she had intruded upon our weekend a little bit, I think. And she said to me, you know, if you're going to apply, I will defer a year. I will wait so that we don't have to do this together, because I know that basically you're the only reason I'm here in the first place. And I did not want to do it together. But at the same time, I told her, you know, everything that we're learning with Tara is about self-care and putting your desires at the top of your priority list. And so I don't want to do this together. But if you don't apply because of me, I'm going to be really disappointed in you. Because that's the whole reason we're here. Yeah. And so we had this very open conversation about it. And, you know, we were like, Tara will read the energy of these applications and she will know if it's meant for both of us to be in the program, we'll both be accepted. And if it's not, we won't. And either way, it'll be okay. And I think we were both maybe a little bit praying that we would both kind of not get it, because then we wouldn't have to, you know, put our money where our mouth was. But then when we were both accepted, it was funny because in that moment, the way the acceptance happened was they handed out a little invitation to join Tara and the women who had gone through the creme before for lunch. And I was sitting at a table kind of behind my mom in the conference room as they were passing out the invitations. And at that last minute, I had a really strong feeling inside. And I was like, if I get an invitation and she doesn't, I'm not doing it. So I went from not wanting to do it together to being like, well, we've both applied for this. And now if we don't both get in, I don't know if I can move ahead.
Wow. That's interesting. I did not know that.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we had talked about that.
Well, and it's funny because she had the same experience, which we talked about it afterwards. And at that last minute, she said that she was afraid to turn around and look at me after she got her invitation because she was afraid to see whether or not I had gotten one. And that if I hadn't, she might have said no.
I love that. Oh, I love you guys. I love you both so much. Yeah, so you both got invitations and then you both said yes. That's amazing. So we're going to talk more about, I guess, her being in it in our next episode. Da-na-na. So we don't need to talk about it a lot now, unless there's something else that you wanted to share about the experience of joining it with her.
I mean, the only thing that I feel called to say is that it's been incredible for me to witness her growth. And it's also completely changed our relationship. I feel like our relationship, we've always been close, but I feel like our relationship is so much deeper now. And that we see each other much more clearly.
I love that. Yay. Aw. I love you guys. It makes my heart so happy.
Well, and I think there's another interesting thing to think about what I was going through in terms of my relationship with you, because I was, I think you probably know, I'm not sure how explicitly I've stated it, but that I was really, really scared about applying because I knew how much you had wanted it the year before and I knew how sad you had been. And
Yeah.
I was really scared that by applying and then by saying yes, if I was accepted, that I would hurt you.
Yeah, I remember that. And I remember having to kind of say, I feel maybe multiple times, like, no, I'm good. Don't even worry about it. Like, I feel so good. And it's so clear to me that it's not my time to do this. And and I would love for you to do it. I mean, I was ecstatic. I was probably as excited about when you found out that you lost your job. I was like, this is great. This is the best next step ever. So yeah, I do remember that though. And I remember us having to kind of talk about it. Your mom actually also mentioned it to me briefly. Cause I guess she must have known that I had applied, or maybe she just overheard us talking. But at some point she also was like, oh, like, are you okay? Is this okay? How are you feeling? And I was like, no, I feel so good. I feel so, the year prior, it had been such a strong yes for me. And I had felt it, that full-bodied yes that you were feeling. I had a different experience, but I had also felt that or something similar to that. And then last year, I was such a clear no. I was a full-bodied no. I was like, oh. And it was such a peace that I had around it there was no even question, not even like the tiniest question of, oh, well, but maybe, or like, oh, I wonder why it's a no. I didn't even bother to ask that because it was such a clear no that I was like, oh, well, that's great. That takes care of that. I don't have to worry about spending $20,000 today. I can just enjoy the rest of this weekend knowing that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. But I do remember that for sure. And I think that we even maybe talked about it once more after the weekend, unless I'm making that up. I feel like it happened again very briefly, like just like a little, are you sure you're okay? And me being like, I'm great.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting because I think this is a testament to Tara as an intuitive and as a coach, is that after I was accepted to the Creme, she knew that you and I were friends, and she knew that you are the person who had brought me really into her circle. And one of the first things she said was, I honor you so much for being here. And I especially honor you for being here when Sally has chosen not to be, because I know how hard that decision was for you. Then of course I like burst into tears and was like, yeah, it's so hard. And I also remember that on the day I was accepted, I was going up to the room to be like welcomed by all of the women who've been through the program before. And you walked down the hall away from me, and you were wearing a white skirt and white top, like a midriff bearing, open back, cross back little number that was just gorgeous. And you were walking away just all in white. And I just remember being like, Sally is my angel. Like, Sally is the one who brought me to this place. And it was such a stark 180 from where I'd been, 2 weeks ago in, thinking I was going to have a job for many years to come, and also feeling really lost. And I think that losing my job and then coming straight to this event, I was at a point where I was like, oh my God, my life is totally like gone off the rails. And I don't know what I want. And if I don't invest in myself now, how much time am I going to waste flailing around trying to figure it out? And so I know a lot of times when it comes to investing in ourselves, we're like, oh, I'll do it next year. But I was like, if this is growth I require, why would I wait?
Yeah.
And I'm so glad I didn't, even though the price tag was terrifying. It's been really interesting because the price tag, well, I remember before I applied, I thought about calling my boyfriend to talk it over with him because we live together and we don't share finances, but we make a lot of decisions together. And so I remember literally standing, like looking out the kind of balcony window of our hotel room with my phone in my hand, about to call him to be like, hi, this is what I'm considering doing. And at the last minute, I was like, no, you know what? This decision is mine. And I don't want to invite any other energies in, because I know how I feel and I know that I'm making this investment regardless of what he says. So then I had the really interesting experience of coming home and being like, babe, I need to talk to you. And like, could you sit down? I just want to like tell you something briefly. By the way, I just spent $20,000, which was, it was so interesting. He was so supportive, and I don't know what I was expecting, but he was like, oh, well, you know, if you felt like this was something you needed to do, I'm glad you did it. And he didn't say a lot. I think he was in shock, but it was interesting. And then as I had so many friends who were like, how was the weekend? Blah, blah, blah. And I really didn't want to hide. And so I told the people that I was close to pretty much right away, like, oh yeah, I joined this year-long program and the investment piece was $20,000. And of course, everyone around me, I feel like, or most people around me, just thought I had lost my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an interesting feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess take us through the journey a little bit. I mean, it's been a year-long journey. So take us through the journey a little bit of being a creme. And I actually would like to start with your relationships, just because we just ended on that. So it feels like good to go there. Just how things have shifted for you, what has developed for you, and that kind of thing.
Oh boy. Well, I feel like it's so big that I don't know how to talk about it succinctly, but I can try.
It's why we're here.
I know. I think that I have changed pretty drastically. I feel like a completely different person than I was before. And, you know, we talked on the last episode about how I was feeling so lost and so disconnected from myself. And I remember before I joined the creme, I was like, I don't even know what I want. And if I could name one desire right now, it would be to want something, to really want something. So my desire was to have desires. Mm-hmm. And that involves a lot of like permission internally. And so a lot of what I've learned over the course of the program has been about giving myself permission in every sense of the word, you know, like permission to feel all my feelings and permission to want the things that I want and permission to say no to the things that I don't want. And the other big thing, this goes back to what you were saying in terms of how's it affected my relationship, is I have come to understand that nothing that's going on in the external world, my external world, is ever... Hang on, how do I say this clearly? That anytime I'm upset or triggered by something or feeling any kind of negative emotion, that it doesn't have anything to do really with what's happening in my external world, but that it has something to do with how I'm internally relating to the situation in front of me. Mm-hmm. And so just within the context of my romantic relationship, that has changed things so drastically, because if something's going on between me and Matt and I'm feeling upset, I'm able to be like, all right, I'm feeling very upset and I need to remove myself from the situation and figure out what in me has been triggered, because 10 times out of 10, the level of emotion I'm feeling is out of proportion to the situation I'm facing. And I think that that's true for most of us when we get triggered, is that emotion that flares up is so overwhelming. And when you really look at it objectively, you're like, oh, this does not make sense for what just happened, that I'm feeling this upset or this angry or this sad. And so I've learned to really take responsibility for a lot of things, so that when I do come to Matt with a problem, I'm able to say, like, here's how and why I got triggered by what happened. And I'm working on healing these pieces, and you can help me by knowing XYZ, or by doing this one thing differently in future, or by being more mindful of whatever it is. And it just has made all of our conversations, and even tense conversations, into something productive, rather than, I think, what is a typical pattern of, or was our typical pattern of me being like, I feel this way kind of, and it's your fault and you need to change. So now I'm like, I feel this way and I know it's not about you, it's about me. And at the same time, here's what we can do together to make our relationship stronger.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah,
also,
it's great. And then the other thing that's really cool is that the more I've grown, I feel like Matt has also really started incorporating a lot of the things that I've learned into his own life. And it's so, so fun to watch him grow and to watch him become a happier and happier person.
Yeah. I love you, Matt.
I love him too.
Great. I love it. You touched on a lot of things there that I had questions on. So also, as a side note, the way that you just described triggers was exactly how I described it on an indie call with Tara once. And I was like, I know that this is a trigger because, and then I just said the same things that you just said, and I just thought that was funny. And she was like, yes, Sally, that's exactly right. And I was like, great, I'm doing it right.
Well, it's so funny because it's like once you manage to really wrap your head around a few basic concepts, it shifts the way that you relate to your entire life and to the entire world.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's really the thing about this program has been learning to shift your focus from what's happening externally that's completely out of your control to what's happening internally that's completely within your control. And then choosing the things that feel good.
I love it. Awesome. Okay, so now we're fast forwarding a bit to get back closer to the present. So technically you guys end in a few weeks. I guess, I don't know how many weeks now, like a month, I guess, or so. How are you feeling about things now? Kind of looking back.
Well, it's interesting. There are a couple pieces to this because the investment piece, I think, is very interesting to talk about on its own. So to be completely honest, I made this investment on a 0% interest credit card, like I've already said, and it's not paid off. And I just found out that the 0% is 18 months, not a year. So that's great because I have an extra 6 months to figure out what the hell I'm going to do. Yeah. So
that little
great.
miracle.
So great. Yeah. I was like, this is the best discovery ever. So the investment piece is interesting because there are some women who are coming into the program this year who asked me point blank, was it worth the $20,000? And overall, my answer is that there have been a lot of moments where I've been frustrated or I've been like, oh, for $20,000, like I would have expected better customer care or I would have expected them to like have things a little bit more together. But at the same time, there have been multiple moments over the course of this year where in the moment I was like, this moment alone is worth $20,000 to me. So coming up on the year mark, I guess we're at the year mark. And even though I know that I don't have it paid off yet, I feel like it was completely worth the investment. And the thing that we haven't even touched on is that, you know, a year ago, having just lost my job and not knowing what I wanted, I had the tiniest glimmer of a thought that I wouldn't even allow myself to follow of like, oh, like maybe I could start my own business. And now I'm in the process of that. And that's so exciting to me because it's still really getting off the ground and it's not yet sustaining me financially. But I feel really, really good about where I'm headed. And I know that I wouldn't be here without the investment I made in myself. So even if it takes a while to pay it off, I think that the return on my investment is going to be huge because not only am I much happier, I'm also much more independent and I'm taking risks in my life and being brave in my life in ways that I don't think I would have had the strength to do before this program.
Any other big ones?
Any other big ones? I mean, this podcast, it sounds kind of silly, but one of the biggest sorrows that I was feeling last year was that I had completely stopped creating, but that I had no desire to create. And I thought no ability to create and no ideas, no inspiration. And I had gotten to this place where I was like, I'm just not a creative person.
I remember that.
I mean, and then to have the inspiration to make this podcast and to get so excited about it and to kind of be like, you know, I hope it does well, but even if it doesn't, the fact that I can feel excited about something that I want to bring into the world fills me with so much gratitude because I was afraid that I would never feel that again.
I love it. And yay, podcast.
Yay.
I'm so excited about it. All right. So if you could go back to a year ago today and talk to yourself knowing what you know now, what would you say?
Oh boy. What would I say? It's funny. I knew this question was coming, so you would think that I had an answer prepared, but I don't. I would say way to go, you. Like, you have just done something so brave. And you have no idea how good it's going to be.
I love it. And how sexy you're going to look in your photos.
Yeah, we didn't mention that part. As part of the year-long program, there was a boudoir photo shoot. So I also got some sexy photos out of the deal.
Which are great. You look hot. I love it. And to close, in one word, how do you feel about this whole experience now?
I feel awed, as in like in awe. I can't believe that I was brave enough and bold enough to make the decision that I made a year ago. And I'm so thankful, and I'm really in awe of myself. That was not one word, but
It was, and then a little explanation. Oh boy, I love it. Thanks for sharing, Tyla.
You're welcome. Thank you for creating the space for me to share.
Of course, absolutely. And I will say that and I'll probably say this again when we are at Sarah's event, but I am very proud of you. I'm so thrilled at everything that you've said yes to and that you've allowed yourself to experience. It was a long time coming, and I just really love and honor you for that. I obviously already loved you tremendously before, but I do have to admit that it is much more fun to have open conversations with you about things like responsibility and triggers and all of that, instead of, having you look at me like I have 5 heads.
Yeah. Now I know the personal growth lingo. Also, you just made me cry.
That's cool, because you made me cry earlier when you were talking about me walking away looking like an angel. So,
boy, I love you so much.
I love you. Yay, we did it again.
All right, so until next time.
Yes. Peace out.
Peace out.